Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another live session with Nexi Concept. I'm happy to see all of you. I can see everyone coming in. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining our live session. I see you, Chrissy. I see you, Crystal Glow Place. Zahim, I see you. You're welcome. And I'm waving back at you. Okay, so we'll be having a very important time. We'll be discussing about January 2025 intake and the steps you must take. So I'll just give some time for others to join. I'll give some time for others to join so we can all discuss together. But believe me, you'll be having an awesome time and we'll be discussing together. So let's just give some time for others to join. So in case you don't know, if you're just joining us, this is our Wednesday live session for Nexi Concept Limited. My name is Chinedu Ede and I'm a student recruitment advisor for Nexi Concept Limited. So I believe you've seen my face and you'll keep seeing my face often and on. So while we wait for others to join, I want you to buckle up because we'll be having an informative session. We'll be looking at the January intake for 2025 and all you need to know about January intake. I know most of us are at the verge of applying for studies abroad, so you need this information to prepare as early as possible, especially those persons that will be going for the January application, the January intake. So please listen and invite others. If you know anyone that this live will be beneficial to, please send the link to them, share the link and let them join, as we'll be discussing about everything you need to know to plan for your January intake application. Thank you very much for joining. I can see everyone joining. So you're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. So I think we've had some persons join, so we'll start right about now. So the January intake is fast approaching. Currently, we are just rounding up with the September intake. So we are just rounding up with the September intake and applications have closed. Some schools are already closing and the schools that are available for September, they are very few. So basically the September intake is gone. We are just rounding up with it. But the January intake is, I don't want to say it's fast approaching. Some schools have already opened for the January intake, so it's here already. For those persons that want to apply for January 2025, this live session is for you. You have to know the things you need, the things you need to put together, the processes involved, so you won't make any mistakes. So in this live session, basically we'll be discussing about different intakes we have for studies abroad. We'll be discussing about the things you need to do, the preparations you need to make in order to achieve a successful application to schools abroad. And we are going to let you know the importance of applying early, because we don't just want to put in applications, we want to ensure that these applications are done on time, so the students won't be rushing when the time comes. So we want you to sit back and listen. I'm seeing someone asking, what about September intake? Yeah, the information you're going to be hearing, it cuts across all intakes, although there is a difference between the September and the January intake. I'm going to explain that while I talk. You'll know the difference, but many of the information you'll be hearing here, it cuts across all intakes. So just listen and get the information you need. Thank you. So we're talking basically about studying in the UK, USA, Canada, Ireland, and other European countries. So like I said, the information cuts across all. We're focusing on the January intake, but for those persons that are looking for information for September intake, also listen, because it applies to the September intake also. So we have different intakes for schools abroad. We have the September intake, which is the major intake. We have the January intake, and we have the May intake, which is mid-year. So I will take that again. We have the September intake. The major intake for schools abroad is the September intake, and that's where you get to see many courses available. You get to see more courses available. Then we have the January intake, which we are preparing for currently, and we have the May intake. So the May intake is the mid intake. So the September intake has more courses available, and the May intake has less courses available, while the January intake also have less courses available. So I believe with the information I'll be sharing with you, you understand why these intakes are different and why it's important for you to start your application early enough. So for September intake, like I said, it has more courses. January intake, the window is very small for January intake, although there are courses available, but for the May intake, just few courses, especially business related courses. So it cuts across all these countries. So I wrote down some things here, and permit me, I'll be looking down to give you some information. So for the UK, majorly UK has September, May, and January. So for September intake, it starts from the beginning of the year. From January, you can start applying for September intake. Then for May intake, the May intake opens from February, March. You can start applying for May intake. So why the January intake, it starts from November or October, November, you can start applying for the January intake. So, but the intake with the longest span of application is the September intake. That's why many persons tend to apply for September intake. But if you've missed the September intake, the January intake is still available for you. That's why it's open currently, and you can apply for it. So for those persons that missed applying for the September intake, then you can go for the January intake. That's why it's open. So like I said, it cuts across the UK, the USA, Canada, and Ireland, and other European countries. So for the USA, they have the fall intake, which is the September. Then they have the spring, that of the spring, which is January. So when you go to their course website, you always see fall and spring. Don't get confused. Fall is for September, spring is for January. Then they have the summer intake, which is for May. That is for USA, for those persons that will be applying to the US. Then for Ireland, they just have the September and the January intake. For Canada, they have the fall intake, which is September. They have the winter intake. So in Canada, their winter intake falls on January. Then they have the summer intake, which is for May. So for those applying to Canada, know that. Then for the European countries, they have the January, the September/October intake. Then few schools are open for the May intake. So I believe you've been able to understand the differences between the countries and their different intake, but they have so much similarities. So for those persons looking at January intake, schools are available for January intake 2025, and will be telling you all you need to know, the preparations you need to put in place in order to achieve a successful application. So secondly, I want you to bear in mind that these intakes are not always open. They have deadlines. Yeah, they have deadlines. So if you're going to be applying to a school, whether January, whether September, whether May, they have deadline. But specifically for January intake, it's currently open. The deadline for the January intake is by October, November. Many schools will be rounding up with application. So you that wants to apply, you have to ensure that you have all your documents ready for the application. We are going to get to that. We will get to the steps you need to take in order to achieve a successful application for the January intake. But please bear it in mind, or have it at the back of your mind, that these intakes work with deadlines. Some schools have their soft and hard deadlines. So many persons, when they apply and they are behind time, they start requesting for an extension of deadline. So the schools have hard deadline whereby they won't extend again, and if you don't get it, if you don't get your response or your application at that point submitted, then you won't be able to get an offer. So have it at the back of your mind that every school works with deadlines for the various intakes. So for the September intake, the deadline is usually June, July. By July, schools are rounding up. So by August, they'll start issuing CAS. The CAS is the confirmation of acceptance to study. So they start issuing CAS, or for other countries, they start issuing you your acceptance letter. So for September intake, within July, August, the schools are already rounding up. So please do well to meet up with your application deadline. Then for January, which is our focus, the deadline for January is October, November. So if you're looking at studying in any of these countries for January intake, you should have started your application by now. Like I said, schools are already opening up for January. You should have started your application by now. We'll let you know the things you need to do to get this application submitted. So by October, November, they'll be rounding up, and by November to December, they'll start issuing cards, so students can resume by January. And the resumption date for many schools is mid-January, 16th, 17th, 18th. So have that at the back of your mind. Then for May, the deadline for application for May intake is around April. So April, they will already be closing application for May intake, because like I said, the window is very small. The major intake for application is normally the September intake. So that is it for the deadlines. So, and you have to know that many courses are available for September intake, more than that of the January intake. So schools are even opening now for September, while schools are also open for January intake. So there are more courses available for the September intake more than other intakes. That's why people tend to apply to the September intake. But currently we are focusing on the January intake. So now we'll go to the steps you need to take in order to put in a successful application. I want you to listen very well, because this is where the information you need will be given to you. There are steps you must take in order to achieve a successful application for the January intake 2025. If you miss it, you miss out. I'm seeing some persons asking questions, and yeah, I'm seeing some persons asking questions. Please know that if you have any questions that inquiries you need to make, our DM2 is open. You can also message us and we are going to attend to it. But after this live session, I'm going to run through the questions and I'm going to answer them. So do you do Australia? Yes, we do. You can DM us and we are going to attend to you. So let's start. What are the steps you need to take for January 2025 application? I've written down some things here and I'm going to be dishing them out one after the other. So please listen. First of all, you have to research the shortlisted institution and the courses available. Yeah, many of us, we want to study abroad, and many persons don't take time to research or know the school or the course they want to study. So it's very important. Enough of I want to Japan, I just want to be there. No, that shouldn't be your mindset. That shouldn't be your mindset. So if you want to Japan, if you want to go and study abroad, you have to take time to research about this institution first to know if it aligns with your aspiration. You have to also research about the course you want to go and study abroad. You have to research about the course so you will know if it aligns with your career goals, because all of us have our career goals. You want to become a medical doctor and you go over there because you want to Japan, you now go and study music. It doesn't align. So your first aim shouldn't be that you just want to go out. You have to know what you want, know your career aspiration, then you make research for schools and courses that align with your career aspiration. So that is on one side. So first off, you have to make research about the institution and the course. Then secondly, you have to check the application deadlines and requirements. Like I said initially, I think I hit hard on the application deadlines, and for those persons that are just coming, you can rewatch this live again. I've spoken much about the deadline. So you have to know the deadline and the requirements for application. They call it entry requirement. So for you to study in any country of your choice, whether UK, US, Canada, Ireland, and the Europe, you have to know the application deadline. So that would help you to plan more. That's what it does. If you don't work with a deadline, it's normal. You won't be able to plan well. You won't be able to plan with time. So when you know the deadline, you plan with time at the back of your mind. Then you have to know the requirements for entry, the entry requirements, because these are the things that either make your application successful or not. If they say you should have a WAEC C6 and you have a WAEC, let me say you have a D7 in your English, and they say you should have a C6 in your English. I'm giving an example now. Then you have a D7 instead of a C6, and you didn't check the requirements. You can go ahead and put in this application. And one thing with the portal is that the portal won't reject any application. It will be sent, and you'll be waiting, hoping that your application has gone, and you'll be waiting for response. Meanwhile, you didn't meet the application requirements, and you wait, and you wait there. So in order to avoid those things, ensure that you check the requirements so you know what you're applying for. You know if you meet the entry requirement or the criteria the school has put to apply for that particular course. Then if you meet it, you can go ahead and apply. If you don't meet it, it's not a do or die affair. There are schools have their different requirements, and you can go and search for another school that also aligns with your aspirations, and their requirement might be flexible, more flexible than the previous school. And that's where we come in to help you. If you have those kind of issues, you don't know, I have an HND, I have this, I have that, I don't know if I'm to take IELTS or all that, we have professional counselors that can guide you on that. So you can also DM us, and we are going to assess your documents and tell you the schools that you fit to apply for. Then we'll advise you properly. So please, you have to know the requirements that the school is giving for a particular course. So you won't just put application and keep waiting and wasting your time. Meanwhile, you don't meet the requirements. And the bad thing about that is that most schools won't tell you that, I'm sorry, your application was not successful. Not all schools will send you a mail. So most of them, it will just go maybe to their trash and you will be waiting. So to avoid that, please check the application requirement. The third thing I wrote here is prepare your documents and other supporting documents. So there are documents that are needed to apply for schools abroad. Any of the schools, there are documents that are needed. So you have to know those documents and prepare them. Then there are supporting documents that you will also need to put in this application. Maybe specific documents that the school will require. You have to start planning for those documents, especially if those documents too are needed, if they have deadline for those documents. I'm going to give an example of those documents for you to know what I'm talking about. So for preparation of documents, we know the documents that are needed for study abroad. So there is a general list every student that want to study abroad should know. Then any other document that comes into that list is an added document, but there's a general list you should know. So I'm going to list out those documents. So for those persons that don't know it, you have to know those documents and work in line or work to get those documents. So top on the list is your international passport. Every student wanting to study abroad, you must have secured your international passport, or it should be in the process of it should be processing. So it should be processing so it can be issued to you in a later date. But it shouldn't be something you're starting now and you're hoping to get it in 4 or 5 months' time. Please, you should have your international passport with you, or you should be processing it. And try as much as possible to get it early enough. That's top on the list. Because I see many students come and say, I want to study abroad. And the first question you ask them, or when you send the list to them, and they say, I don't have number one, because many a times it's always number one. I don't have number one on the list, which is the most important thing. How do you want to leave your country without an international passport? I wonder. So please go get your international passport. Then secondly, your degree certificate and transcript. Many of us up till now have not gotten our degree certificate and transcript. Go back to your school, request for it, and follow the processes you need to get it. So many a times we have issues of school telling you to send to the school you want to apply to. Yeah, your school can issue to you directly, issue a student copy, and the student copy can be used for the application many a times. Then if an official copy is needed, it will be requested for. So please go get a copy of your transcript and your certificate. That is a must. You should have your certificate. Then after that, that's the certificate and transcript. You should also have your WAEC result. We all graduated from a secondary school, so you should have your WAEC result, and you should be having a good grade in your WAEC. So this the grade in your WAEC, or the entry requirement for this document, it's tied to the entry requirement of this school. So some schools might require you to get a particular grade, so ensure you have those grades in your WAEC result. So after your WAEC result, the next thing you should be having is your updated CV. You should have a CV that talks about you, that has your biodata, your education history, and your work history, if you worked. So that CV, many a times people get confused. Yeah, your normal CV can fly, but you have to update it and retouch it. There is something called academic CV. So some schools might require for academic CV, so you have to revamp your CV to be in an academic format. But an updated CV too, many a times will fly. So get your CV. You also need a reference letter, both from your workplace and your academic institution, your previous school where you studied. So you can get those letters from your lecturers for the academic reference you can get from your lecturers and your HOD. Then for your work reference, you can get it from where you're working or where you serve during your NYSC. So you can get that. Then after the next document after the reference letter is an SOP. We call it SOP. The full meaning is statement of purpose, or some persons call it personal statement. So this is a very important document, and this is where many students get it wrong at times. With the recent trend in the internet or the advance of technology, many persons get to get SOP online. You just go online and you type and you get it, or you use ChatGPT to draft your SOP. No, please. SOP is supposed to be in students' own words, so you have to write that SOP by yourself, and then you can now do some touch or give someone to help you edit it. So the SOP is a document that explains why you want to study that course, why you want to study in that particular country, and how that course will be beneficial to your career. So that's what that document is, just like an essay. That's what that document will contain. So you will need your SOP, and with this document, you're sure to put in an application. Then any other supporting document the school might ask for, then you have to go and prepare for it. When I talked about supporting document, I meant documents like IELTS results. Some courses require you, aside your WAEC, they will require you to get an IELTS result, an IELTS test, and you should issue a result. So you have to start planning to sit for that test early enough, because once your offer comes, that will be a condition for you to receive an unconditional offer. So you have to start sitting for an IELTS. Some schools in the US might require you to take a professional test, maybe GRE or IGSC for the undergraduate students. So you have to start sitting for those tests early enough, so that you won't have issues after your application. So once they request for that document, you can submit it. So that's why I said supporting document. Then another supporting document can also be your international passport. So you can get that too. You can put it in process while you're applying. So questions are dropping. This reference letter, does it have to be obtained just for the purpose of the application, or could you use a random reference letter? So you can get reference letter is reference letter. You can get a reference letter from your workplace. And I always advise students that when you're processing it, when you're requesting for a reference letter, in order not to have conflict, just address it to whom it may concern. So you can get a reference letter specifically for study abroad and address it to whom it may concern, so you can use it subsequently for other applications. So I don't know if I've not answered your question. You can leave a comment. So I've talked about the documents you need to prepare. Then after you've prepared all these documents and you've prepared your supporting documents, you can then go ahead and submit the application. So in submitting your application, you can either do it, you can choose to do it with an agent, a certified agent, and it's very important. You can do that. That's where we come in. So you can send the documents to us, and we are going to submit this application to you. I'm just going to take you through a flow of how the application process goes. So first of all, you get your documents, you put in these applications on the school portal, or you submit via an agent, and they will go through your documents, they will assess them, and if you're qualified for that particular course, they are going to give you an offer. So the offer can be conditional or unconditional. So note what I said, it can be conditional or unconditional. So many a times, if your offer is conditional, it means that you will be needed to submit a document for them to make it an unconditional offer. So offers that come with conditions means that you're going to have to bring something to fulfill that condition, bring a document to fulfill that condition, so that it becomes an unconditional offer. So sometimes they will tell you to go and revamp your SOP, or go and update your CV, or tell them about the study gaps. So these things, you should have it in mind. So in case you're planning for your document, ensure the documents are accurate and up to date. Might ask you to go get an affidavit. So that's for a conditional offer. But if they assess your documents and all your documents are okay, then you get an unconditional offer, and you'll be asked to pay a deposit. After you pay a deposit to the school, an acceptance letter will be issued to you. And it is with this acceptance letter you can now proceed to applying for your visa. So you apply for your visa with your acceptance letter. For the UK, they call it CAS, which is Confirmation of Acceptance to Study. For Canada, they call it Confirmation of Enrollment and all that. So they will issue you a document which you're going to use to apply for your visa. Then you move over. The next step is the visa application. This is another serious step you need to take. This is an important point now in your application. Once you've scaled through the application for the studies, getting your offer from the school, then the visa application is very important. That's why I said you should have planned for these documents early enough. So once you get your CAS or your confirmation of acceptance from the school, you go ahead and send your documents for visa application. The visa application, it takes time and it differs according to different countries. So you won't want to submit your visa application late, so you start running around when the deadline is fast approaching. So you must have secured those documents. So while you're applying for school, you must have started preparing for application for visa. So gather all your documents, birth certificate, everything you need for the visa application. Different countries have their different visa application requirements. So you have to get the documents that align with the country you're going to study in, and use it to apply for your visa. So we always take students through some process before the visa application. So we have a kind of orientation with students to tell them the documents that will be needed for this visa application before we go ahead and apply for the visa application for them, if we'll be handling your visa application. So if you need more information about visa application and all that, we have a dedicated visa team in Nexi Concept Limited, and they are professionals. They are going to handle your visa application, and they are going to hold your hands and walk you through it. So many a times people get visa denial because of wrong application, because of they miss some areas where they're supposed to focus on. So we ensure that we scrutinize every document, and we advise you on what to do. Some persons just send their documents and they don't scrutinize it, they just take it and apply. No, we don't do that. We have professionals dedicated to visa application, and they will help you through the process. If you need help with visa, you can always send a DM, and whether you have your visa ongoing, you can send a DM and they are going to attend to you. So after you submit your application, you prepare for your visa application and you've submitted, then the visa application in itself, you have some other documents you have to prepare. That's why we are emphasizing on you to prepare on time. So the visa application, you have to submit a proof of fund. So the proof of fund is a document that shows that you can fend for yourself when you get to the UK. So that document is important. For different countries, they will require proof of fund for that has a duration of maybe 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, yeah, up to 6 months. Like Canada and USA, I know they will require you to show funds that are up to 6 months. If you have these funds in your account, many a times you might need to build it, because maybe the funds that the school is requiring for is a little bit more than what you have in your account, and you want to build it. Fine, you can build it, and it means you have to wait for this duration of months. That is why you need to apply early enough, so that it can cover for that duration. You can cover for you during the application process. So you have to prepare for your proof of fund and ensure that it aligns with the deadline that the school is giving. So that is on the financial part. So you have to plan for your finances. If you're applying through an agent like us, we are going to take you through something we call financial plan. Even before we start the application, we tell you the tuition the school will require. When you've chosen your school, we'll break down the different installments the school will want you to pay when you get over to the UK, and we'll also plan your proof of fund and tell you this and this is what you need to start preparing for your proof of fund. So even when you get an offer, you can start your you can submit your proof of fund, because you've already prepared for all those things. So please, you need early information and you need to plan early. So I wrote another thing again, accommodation and travel arrangement. The moment you get your CAS and you're hopeful that your visa is sure, all things being equal, you have to start planning for your accommodation and your travel arrangement. Nobody should leave the shores of Nigeria without planning for accommodation, because I don't know where you're going to sleep. They don't have anywhere in the UK or in US or in Canada or in Ireland that they allow people that just come in to sleep for free. So you have to plan your accommodation, and if you have people there, if you have relatives there that want to keep you for a period of time in their houses, you can also take that as an option. But please plan for your accommodation, make inquiries, ask questions, and you will get the answers you need. So we are also here to help with that. Nexi Concept Limited. So now we are going to move on to common mistakes people make. Common mistakes people make. So I have taken time to analyze cases which we've had with students, because most persons, they won't take you through, they won't come to you when they started. They will come to you when they are in between or when they are stuck. They will then come to you, and you have no option. It's our duty to always help them. So, but we've seen these common mistakes and we've documented them, and thank God you're listening to this live. So please take note of them so you won't be part of the people that will make this mistake. So number one is application error. That's number one on my list. Some persons apply for wrong courses. Meanwhile, they are supposed to apply for another course because they didn't pay attention to details. So there are application errors. Some persons apply for a longer duration of course. Meanwhile, they are supposed to apply for a shorter duration. Some apply for a shorter duration. Meanwhile, they are supposed to apply for a longer duration, maybe with an internship or something. So this is because they didn't pay attention to details. Secondly, financial missteps. Some people err in their financial plan, and that will go a long way to affect their visa. So for those persons that will be applying for visa, ensure you have sat down to plan your finances. That's why we always encourage students that if you know you can't do it alone, please come to certified agents. Counselors, by God's grace, they are British certified counselors, so they are going to guide you through. We know these steps, both for UK, for USA, for Canada, for Ireland. We know what you need for this application. So the financial plan, we are going to plan with you and tell you what you need to submit for this application. So when you get your financial plan, you will avoid those pitfalls that come with finances. So some persons make this mistake, and when they get to their visa stage, they get denied. So please, to avoid this, come and get the right information. For those persons that are already having issues, you can also message us and we are going to sort it out. So another mistake people make is visa error or visa issues. People have visa issues because they decided to either do it on their own when they know they can't do it, or they didn't pay attention to the information on the visa website. So please, to avoid mistakes like this, ensure you pay attention to details, reach out to those persons you need to reach out to, and ensure that you get the required information. So these are little mistakes. Some persons go ahead applying and they don't meet up with the deadline. Your application is ongoing and the deadline has already passed. Most of them are now aware and they are hopeful that they will get an offer. That is another common mistake people make. So I'll also tell you the advantages of applying early and the disadvantages of not applying early. So we've already heard most of the advantages of applying early. I've told you, if you apply early, you will tend to get your offer early and put in your application early, and it also saves you cost. Some persons are running around now for money because they didn't take heed to this kind of advice. So if you apply early, it saves you cost. I remember when the application opened for January, many persons that applied early, they were not caught up with this current forex fluctuation, because we discovered that forex started going high, it started going up at some point, and it always happened when the schools begin to reach their application deadline. From January up until May, people were using, the forex rate was very low. I know it was very low, but when we began to approach September, we discovered that forex went very high and people started buying at exorbitant rates. So please ensure that you are applying early to avoid all this. Many a times people now start I'm talking about visa now. People start applying for visa very late and they tend to subscribe to premium service, and you know premium service comes with cost, with an extra cost. So if you're applying for visa late, just know that you're going to pay. If you want to get your response faster, you're going to pay more. You're going to pay more because you'll be applying with premium service. This is one disadvantage of applying very late. So please, to avoid all this, apply early. Some persons now, when they apply late, I'm talking about visa now, they will now have to go to another visa location so that they can get a faster date. Maybe they hear that Abuja has dates, Lagos have dates, and you want to get a faster date, you now go to another location. Meanwhile, if you had planned early, you would have done it at your location and gotten your visa early enough. So please, I want to encourage us to apply early, both for your to the school, apply early, and also for visa, apply early. And this is why you need people to guide you. If you need someone to guide you, you're already in the right place. Just DM us. You have issues, DM, send us a message now and tell us, okay, I'm ready to study abroad in the month of January 2025, and I will want your assistance, and we are going to go ahead with the process, guide you through the process, and we hope that you don't have issues with your application. So you must also be acquainted with the recent study policies for international schools. So many persons, another mistake they make is that they are not acquainted with the policies. Example, someone wanting to go to the UK now, coming to ask you, I want to go to the UK with my wife and children. We all know that as at early 2024, UK stopped people from moving with their dependents, I mean their wife and their children, except for specific courses. So if someone is having that at the back of his mind and is also already putting in an application to schools, it means that the person is not acquainted with the policies, and if he continues with that application, he will get disappointed. So that is one mistake people make. So I wrote down something again: seek help from certified agents. Don't just go to anybody to tell you that says, I know how to apply to schools abroad. I've applied before, and the person is in Nigeria. So don't just go to anybody. Seek help from certified agents. I told you we are British certified agents, and we have other certifications too. So please seek help from certified agents, so they will give you up-to-date information and let you know the recent policies that applies to different countries that you'll be sending your applications to. So when you plan early, you save cost. I've already told you that. So I'm trying to give you these key points. I jotted down some specific points and I'm trying to give it to you. So visa turnaround time for different countries vary. Like I told you, for visa application, their turnaround time varies. So you also have to submit your visa application early enough. The visa application for UK is within 2 to 3 weeks from the time you submit your application. So it can also span into 4 weeks or maximum of 1 month. But when they start having so much applications coming, you discover that this timeline can even spread more. So that's for UK. For USA also, they have an application deadline from 3 to 7 weeks. And if they have more application, it will spread. It cuts across every other countries. It cuts across every other country. If you are applying for Canada, you should know that you must have started your visa application early enough, because it can take you 2 months. Yeah, for Canada, it can take you 2 months for you to get your response, if it's successful or not. So you have to start these things early. So I've told you about the risk of applying late. I've told you about the advantages of applying early. So I believe these information will be beneficial to you, and I'm going to be opening room for questions very soon. Please, if you have your question, this is the time to drop your question. I know some persons dropped some questions while I was talking and I brushed them a bit. So if you have questions, please drop your questions and I will be glad to attend to them. And if I have not attended to your question, maybe you dropped it during the live, try and drop your question again and I'm going to attend to them. So thanks for listening. I'm just going to recap again for you to know what we've been talking about. For those persons that joined, we are talking about the January 2025 intake and all you need to do to have a successful application for January 2025. So I took time to explain the different intakes: the September, the January intake, the May intake, and I told you the differences between this intake, that the major intake for studies abroad is the September intake, and it's because it has more courses available and it gives you more window to apply, because it spans from January till maybe August. So you have more time. Then January intake is a minor intake, although it's for those persons that couldn't meet up with September intake and want to still continue, so they can apply for January intake. And currently the January intake is open. So for those persons that want to move and study abroad in January, this is your time to apply. And we talked about the May intake. If the May intake has a smaller window and is limited to specific courses. So we talked about the different intakes. We talked about the documents you need to prepare in order to achieve a successful application. And we talked about you checking the requirements on the school website. So I can run through the documents again for you to take note of it: your international passport, your degree certificate, your degree transcript, your WAEC results, updated CV, your reference letters, both academic reference and work reference, then your statement of purpose, which is a written essay explaining why you want to study in that school, how it will be beneficial to your career, and why you choose that particular country. And it must be written in applicant's own word. So that is for the requirement, and we took time to explain the flow of the application. And I said, when you get your documents prepared and you've gone through the requirements on the course website of the school, you see that course aligns with your career, then you can go ahead and submit those your documents to the school for assessment. So they are going to assess your application, and when they assess it and you're fit for that particular course, they will give you either a conditional and unconditional offer. So if they give you a conditional offer, it means that there are requirements you need to meet for an unconditional offer to be issued to you. And those requirements will be stated on the offer letter. Maybe they will say provide a WAEC scratch card, or they will say provide an updated SOP, or they will say explain the study gap on your CV. So you have to do that. So an unconditional offer will be issued to you. After an unconditional offer is issued to you, then you go ahead and pay your deposit to the school. So the schools require you to pay a particular deposit, and when you pay that deposit, they will issue you a confirmation letter stating that you've been permitted or you've been accepted by the school, and it is with that letter or CAS that you go ahead to apply for your visa. Then your visa too have their requirements which you will be needing for the visa application. So for more information on this, you can reach out to us and we are going to explain further. And I told you about the advantages of applying early. It saves you time, it saves you cost, it keeps you at rest. Some persons now are running up and down because they didn't apply early. It keeps you at rest. It saves you the stress of emailing the school and telling them, give me extension, give me extension. So please start planning your application now, especially those persons that want to apply for January. There are schools open for January. I know University of East London is open, Birmingham City University is open, Hall is open for January. Some courses are already opening for January. So the schools that are open are so much. I can't list all of them, but if you want details about the schools, please reach out to us and we are going to tell you the schools open and the courses that are available, because not all the courses are available for January intake. So you need us to explain this to you. So courses that are available too, there are courses like AI, artificial intelligence and data science. There are courses like international business management, they are available, and there are courses like computer science, courses like biomedical science. They are available for January intake. So please reach out and we're going to explain further. So I've told you about the advantages, that it saves time and cost. I've told you about the disadvantages. You tend to be running up and down, you tend to spend more. So to avoid more expenses, please put in your application early enough to avoid more expenses. I can't emphasize this more because we face so many issues with students coming to us when the deed has been done. So most of them, they're already afraid that they are going to miss their offer, and they come to us. And many times we've helped them. We just and it's not a do or die affair. If you're having that issue, reach out to us. We are going to tell you the best step to take, because there's always a solution. There's always a solution. So reach out to us and we'll tell you the best step to take in order to deal with that particular challenge you're facing. And I believe with proper counseling and with good guidance, you can achieve your study abroad dream. So I'm still waiting for your questions. If there are no questions, like I said, I've attended to some questions at the beginning of this live. I know I did. Someone asked about reference letter, and I've told you I've attended to that. Yeah, we do Austria, like someone asked. And if you have other questions, I'm going to attend to it. If there are no questions, then I might be ending the live shortly. So I'm waiting for your questions. You need details about study abroad, January intake. The courses that are available, I already told you most of the courses are available. And if you have issues with documents, maybe you're confused about the documents you have, or you have issues with your documents, this is the time for you to start checking them. You have to start checking them because it's very important. The document you submit to the school is what will determine if you will either get an offer or not. If you have issues with documents I've listed, you don't know how to get them, we can guide you and direct you on the best way to get this document. If you have financial issues, you don't know how to plan your finances, please, finances is very important. Both the finances here and the one over there, because most persons will tell you that just apply, pay the deposit, when you get over there, you work and pay the remaining. Please, please, I don't want to say beyond that. Get proper information so you won't be hanging when you get over there. Can one get direct master's program to USA schools with HND? Yes, there are schools in US that accept HND. There are schools in US. The US application system is quite liberal. They have a kind of liberality in their application. So it's not as strict as most countries. So there are schools in the US that accept HND, and you're going to get a good course for HND. You can reach out to us and we'll tell you more about that. So any other question? Thank you, Oge, for that your question. Any other question before we call it a day? And I want to appreciate all those persons that have joined us for this live. This live session will be reposted on our platform. So if you missed any information, you can always go back to watch it and get the information you need. So once again, we are Nexi Concept Limited, and we've been guiding students to study in the UK. We are still in this business, and if you have issues, please reach out to us. We'll be very glad to take your inquiries and help you to achieve a successful studies abroad. Successful study abroad. So in the absence of no question, I would like to call it a day from me. From here, we'll be saying goodbye. Thank you for listening. See you next Wednesday. Thank you.